The senator from Florida.
Mr. President, when I talk to families in the state of Florida and around the nation, I often hear how they're struggling to make ends meet. The cost of health care is up. Owning a home has become nearly unattainable. The former administration pushed the American dream further and further out of reach for so many families all across our great nation. I grew up in public housing, and my family didn't have much. And I look across the country, and I see families just like mine growing up. They're doing everything they can to make ends meet. But I knew back then I had the opportunity to do anything because the American dream was alive. As governor and senator, my goal has been to keep the American dream alive so every family can have the same opportunities I did. That dream and those opportunities don't exist under socialism. When crazy radicals in New York City and across this country villainized capitalism and pushed socialism, they forgot that they benefit from the very system they criticized. Socialism has never worked. It's an old, barbaric, discredited idea that's failed every time. Look at Cuba and Venezuela and the many families who fled those brutal regimes to live in my great state of Florida. It kills opportunity. We need to drive down costs. The answer isn't more government, it's less. We don't need more government decisions, we need fewer government decisions. We need to do what we did in Florida, cut taxes, reduce government regulations, grow jobs. The United States was built on individual freedoms and opportunities, and the right of every individual to pursue the American dream despite coming from nothing, just like I had the opportunity to do. That's what this great country stands for. This resolution is a stark reminder for the far left. Socialism is a failure, and Americans will always reject it. As if in legislative session, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of House Congressional Resolution 58, which was received from the House. Further, that the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, and the motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Is there an objection?
Reserving the right to object.
The minority whip.
Mr. President, this is an interesting resolution. It passed the House of Representatives. I'm not sure what the vote was. My colleague and friend from Florida didn't craft it or write it, but he's offering it. And I took a look at it, and it's hard to disagree. Do I think that Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin were bad people? You bet. Mao Zedong, Fidel Castro, Pol Pot, Kim Jong-il, Kim Jong-un, Daniel Ortega, Hugo Chavez, Nicolas Maduro? Sure, no questions asked. Do I think the Bolshevik revolution was a good idea? I wasn't around at the time, but from what I've read, it was not. What do I think about the Great Leap Forward in China, another example of socialism? The list goes on, and it lists the crimes against humanity which occurred by socialist regimes, and they should be listed and noted in this resolution. But then it goes on to explain in terms of Thomas Jefferson and James Madison just what they mean by socialism in this resolution, and that's where you lose me. Because when it's all said and done, I'm a little bit worried. When Franklin Delano Roosevelt created something called Social Security, you know what they called it? Socialism. When Lyndon Baines Johnson created Medicare for millions of Americans, do you know what they called it? Socialized medicine. So in your conclusion where you say, Congress denounces socialism in all its forms and opposes the implementation of socialist policies in the United States, does that include Social Security? Does that include Medicare? I would think those programs might be important in your state. They sure are in mine, and for that reason I object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President.
Senator from Florida.
You know, I actually was born in the great state of Illinois and lived in public housing there. And you know, I grew up in a family that could have had the benefit of things like Medicaid and food stamp programs, and we didn't have those. Those are great programs, and that's not socialism. Socialism is when we take from one group and we just give to another with no real basis for it. We want safety nets. But socialism is a failed ideology. And nothing in this resolution suggests that Medicare is socialism. Nothing suggests Social Security is socialism, because it's not. But it's a failed ideology, and it's the antithesis of the American dream. We've all been blessed. We grew up in a country that believes in capitalism. So I invite any of my colleagues that believe that socialism is good to visit Cuba or Venezuela. I don't see many people flocking there. I see them flocking out of there into my great state, into other states. If you want to come talk about socialism, come to my state, especially in the city of Miami, where there's so many people that have had to flee just because they had no opportunity. Socialism is a proven path to tyranny, starvation, and as my colleague brought up, some of these things that are in the resolution, death. So I'm going to always fight for socialism. So I'm disappointed that we weren't able to get this passed. I don't think it suggests that our great safety net programs like Social Security, Medicare, food stamps, Medicaid, and it's not socialism. But when you're trying to destroy the dream of this country that you can start from nothing and be anything, that we should all be in favor of supporting capitalism over socialism. I yield the floor.